Okay. All right, I'd like to call the May 1st, 2025 Kenai Parks and Recreation Commission work session to order on the Leaf Hansen Park Policy Updates. And I would like to start by introducing myself, the Parks Director, and then also introducing our Deputy Clerk, Megan
Hello.
Thibodeau.
Good to work with you guys again. All right, so we held a work session last month, April 3rd, to review the proposed changes to the Leif Hansen Memorial Park policy, and we decided to have a second work session to review the finalized draft of the policy with all of the changes that we discussed incorporated. So the draft policy is attached in your packet. It starts on page 6 of your work session packet. It includes all of the changes that we discussed at the last work session. And those changes are also, we included the memo from last month also in this packet, so you guys still have that. And then in this memo here, starting on page 2, there's just a few more changes that we decided to incorporate that kind of came up as we were finalizing the draft. So I'll just go over those real quick. So yeah, last month you guys had a great suggestion about clarifying what, how to discuss inappropriately worded plaques of an objectionable nature. Great suggestions about how to keep the policy language open and not non-specific. And we looked at some language that addresses this issue in, I think, Homer and Soldotna cemetery policies. And then we also talked with our city attorney about the best way to phrase that. And so that you can find in the commemorative installation plaques section. Let me see, that's on. So that is on page 7, kind of up near the top. Inappropriate content as determined by city in conformance with applicable law will not be permitted on any commemorative plaques. So that's what we decided to go with. And next bullet point, the change, as we were reviewing the original policy, we just noticed there was kind of a little inconsistency. There was mentions of these plaques in memory of a loved one living or passed, and then at another point it says that it is for those who passed on. So the city clerk felt that it was probably a little bit more accurate, instead of calling it a memorial, call it commemorative installations. So it still means memorial, it's still going to be the memorial park, but on applications, we call them commemorative plaques, commemorative trees and plantings. So, and then last one, we did make some changes to the prohibited section. What we did is we looked at the sign that's installed at the Leif Hansen Park and kind of, so there's a few additions on there to the prohibited section. So alcoholic beverages are prohibited. We actually decided to revise that to better reflect the current city code regarding alcoholic beverages. And let's see, so it's what's on, this section is on page 8 of your packet. And we changed it to alcoholic beverages may not be consumed in the park unless obtained from a holder of a caterer's permit, special events permit, or recreational site license issued by the state of Alaska. That's pretty much taken almost verbatim from code, because at this time we have been allowing groups to have a caterer's license at park to be able to serve alcohol. So
Yeah, and to follow up on that, so we have a generic park rules that are posted almost at all of our parks for things such as the park is closed between midnight and 5 a.m. One of those is we don't allow alcohol, and that kind of follows like open containers and public drinking. But we do rent out pavilions and allow events if they use it. We don't do any permitting with it, but we have them check a box saying, hey, I'm gonna have alcohol, and it's like, okay, this is you promising that you're following all the state statutes and everything like that, following those rules, so we don't have any issues with that.
So if you rented the pavilion for, I don't know, like a barbecue or birthday party or something, and you had alcoholic beverages, that's okay?
If you follow the state code where you have to get like a caterer's permit to serve alcohol.
for a private event.
Yes. They're still, like, even if like, I'll say like, I'm gonna use the sports center as an example, because they have an event space for the conference center. I'm assuming it's the same at the chamber, but I don't know the rules with it. If you rent it for a private wedding, you still have to get like an alcohol company to, and I'm not a lawyer, but you have to get an alcohol company to like get an okay to basically lease their alcohol permit for you so you can serve alcohol at your event.
It's
I
like when
think
you have
it's
a
different if it's for sale, though. I mean, like a wedding maybe, but if you're having like a conference or something, the rules are different when it's for sale.
you just have to, you'd have to have a server, basically.
Right, yeah, you have to have your TAMs and all that. I guess, I'm just clarifying, is it seems a little misleading. So you can reserve the pavilion, whatever, have a family function, somebody brings a cooler of beer, or whatever. That would not be the type of event where you would have a caterer's license. So that seems very different that seems more like no alcoholic beverages, unless you are some sort of a special event. So I guess that's why, that part seems misleading to me.
So they allow it for just, if you rent it for, and don't have a caterer's license, or no?
It says alcoholic beverages may not be consumed in the park unless you've obtained a caterer's permit. So it's not allowed to be consumed in the park unless you've gotten a permit.
State permit, is that what they're referring to, or city permit?
So
The
it
caterer's
says-
permit.
Yeah, caterer's permit, special events permit, or recreational state license issued by the state of Alaska. So I assume
Does the city have a permit that they issue, or is that all referring to state?
We don't have that, but I'm going off and we don't run into this as much, but I'm also going off some of my knowledge when I worked at the city of Savannah. And again, like if you had a wedding, say like in the sports center, you couldn't bring beer. You had to get a permit.
Yeah, and I guess in my mind, I feel like those two spaces are very different. Like, I mean, there's a difference between renting a large event space and having a wedding or a conference or having a barbecue at the park. They seem very different. So that's why I was seeking clarification.
Okay, and so to clarify it too, like if you were gonna rent one of our pavilions and you were gonna have alcohol, we would require you to get like a state permit and everything, because we have a no alcohol rule in our parks.
is it
You have to
under,
have somebody there with a TIN's card serving it, whether it's for sale or not.
Right, and yeah,
You
then that
hired
falls
somebody.
all under the alcohol, whatever beverage
So you have to
board.
have a licensed server, or you pay somebody to come in and serve it and open it.
and that's part of your reservation form, right? Online is they have to upload a copy of that permit to show the city proof that they did get that.
You could hire the upper deck to come out, have somebody to bring alcohol. You have to buy it.
Then on a shelter reservation form right now, all you do is check.
Yeah, you check a box saying basically, I will do this.
Oh, okay.
Is the issue and concern more along the lines of liability?
No, I think it's just following, like Megan said, she pulled this from our code, like specifically on this, so it's following like city code.
So this was a question like a year ago. Like, we didn't really have a clear answer. So was this code hard to find?
Our city code? No.
No, the code referencing alcohol consumption in parks, was that what it
So this is the code that is, I mean, it's regarding alcoholic beverages consumed in the city, so, just in public spaces, so not specific to park. Sorry, you wanna use your mic?
Did it change at some point?
Change from,
I mean, just because we have a lot of people that consume alcohol in our parks, so what is,
that is probably not legal. Yeah. If you guys
Probably one of
want,
those things that's.
if you're interested, I could show you the code on the screen up here. Do you guys wanna see that?
Well, no, I would say let's stick what's in the
Yeah.
packet though for that session and stay on like Leaf Hansen, like I would say,
Yeah.
let's not go on the outside of that, but let's stay on Leaf Hansen on like. So yes, if you rent the shelter, you cannot just bring a cooler of beer.
Right, and my question was directed specifically to Leaf Hansen,
Okay.
because there is a pavilion at Leaf Hansen. That's what my question was specifically about.
Do we feel like we're clear on that one?
Sure.
Okay.
So it's only legal if you hire somebody, basically.
Yeah, and this has
Yes,
all
sir.
been, this policy has been reviewed by our city attorney, I think, a couple times now, and he's approved this language.
Then why are you asking for our input on the language?
Well, we're asking for the whole park. I mean, there is a
It's
lot of
actually one in
changes
there,
here. There's a lot of changes to the policy, not necessarily regarding like alcohol consumption and legal matters like that, so.
Was this not in the packet before with Lee Hansen? It didn't have any of this reference in the,
So you're talking about the original policy? The original policy just said alcoholic beverages is permitted. And so, we wanted to add this to make it more compliant, more
this
consistent
just
with code.
shows that it was permitted, but this is how it's only permitted under these regulations.
Well, so before it said it was not permitted at all.
Oh,
And now we're saying it is permitted with the caterers, or with these permits that are listed,
I
the
see.
legal
So
permits.
we're adding this. The language came from the attorney, but we're adding it to the packets.
Came from the city code.
City,
Because it used to just say none,
yeah.
and now it's being changed to say cannot be consumed except these three things.
Which is
per city
just
code.
taking city code that existed and putting it into this section of the.
Let's see. Next one, this was a phrase that was present in the original policy. It said an adult must be present at all times. So we did decide to remove that. It's not consistent with the signs at the park. It's not really consistent with general park policy. And it was another city attorney recommendation. It's not really enforceable, so. Oops. Next one, so, and if you guys want to see the original policy, it's in your packet, starting on page 9, and so, yeah, the prohibited section kind of starts on page 10 here. Let's see. And this one that we're looking at next is number 9, that's on page 11. Originally, it said riding, parking, or driving except city maintenance vehicles, any bicycle, tricycle, motorcycle, motor vehicle, skateboard, or rollerblades through the park is prohibited. So we decided to make some amendments to that, and we will, we're keeping where it says riding or parking any motor vehicles in the park, except city maintenance vehicles is prohibited. Sorry, so that is on language. So yeah, driving or parking any motor vehicle except city maintenance vehicles within the park is prohibited, so.
Sorry. That goes right to my, breaks through my do not disturb, so.
So any motor vehicles are no longer prohibited, but this change would allow bicycles, tricycles, skateboards, and rollerblades in the park, so non-motorized wheels allowed.
Is that consistent with other parks?
Yeah, that goes with, again, it's not referenced directly here, but there's like in city code minus the lot and extension, you can't ride like, an ATV through the middle of the park. But also, like we said, you couldn't ride a bicycle through this park. That's not gonna be a level of enforceable. I think it's something where it's like, this is actually a thing where if someone rode an ATV through there, we could contact PD, follow up on it, and do our due diligence on it. And I don't think anyone biking through that park is gonna be doing anything malicious or going on there besides hopefully visiting a loved one. No, that still counts as motor.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say, I mean, that seems overly specific, I mean, bicycle, tricycle, skateboard, rollerblades, that's all very, so if I'm riding a unicycle, then I can't, I mean, it seems too specific, I mean, why don't you just say the prohibition of motorized vehicles except city vehicles?
That's what,
No,
and that's what we.
You're right, yeah,
that's what
no,
we did.
the old language.
that was the
Yeah.
old language, and
That's
it
what we did
was very
switch.
specific, so
Yeah, it's weird.
the
Okay.
new language on page 8 just says driving or parking any motor vehicle except city maintenance vehicles is prohibited. We're not outlining everything that's prohibited or not.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it needs to be more intentionally obscure, I think.
Yeah,
And, no excessive noise or loud music, that's a direct one from the sign at Leif Hansen, so just keeping it consistent with standard park rules and signage.
This comes up to a problem I've seen when I was up in a lot. What's excessive noise?
Yes.
Is there a decibel level we need to be putting into this? That's the tricky part, is the enforceability of that is not, there is no enforceability on that, it's no problem. It's just like noise complaints. Well, what's the decimal reading? And this has been going on for 20 years plus, because remember when I was first working for the PD, I got stuck going door to door with a decibel meter, reading different noises throughout the city to try to determine this, and it never changed. So there's no actual decimal level. So on that one there, you could have it in there, but the enforceability is not there.
I think the time of day matters too.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody's annoyed with whatever, kids screaming and yelling and doing whatever at noon, that's a very different thing than being annoyed with kids yelling and screaming and playing loud music at 2 in the morning.
I mean, they do quiet hours for residential
10.
with like CUPs. Usually it's like 10P to 6A or something like that. So if the park's closed at midnight, you might do quiet hours, could be a flexibility,
Between
but
whatever it was, midnight and 5.
it's closed is then,
That's
Yeah,
so
midnight.
quiet hours
Mhm.
applicable, like most, with planning and zoning, most the CUPs they have are quiet for like conditional use permits with, for like short-term rentals. I think it's like 9 or 10 o'clock is kind of the cutoff, if I remember right, for loud noises. And there's a quiet hour time frame, so I just don't know how, I mean, somebody comes in and they wanna rent the space and have live music, is that excessive noise? I think quiet hours might be acceptable, but I just don't know how you're gonna enforce excessive noise. And it's so much interpretation. The old lady lives across the street or at the senior housing, gardening, and somebody's playing loud music next door, is gonna complain about it and say it's not right, but the guy that's playing the banjo and 2 blocks away can't get heard. I mean, at what point? That's my only thing. That's very vague, and I don't think it's enforceable. That's my only thing. But I don't know what yours.
Is that on other park signs though?
I think we have that in other parks, and I think the intent of that one, which I know goes between like intent, law, and like spirit of it. The intent would be to probably just start the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I mean, as simple as like, be respectful is in our, like when you rent a pavilion and we have a group of LARPers next to a wedding. And the wedding was really nervous, and I went and talked to the LARPers, and they were super nice. And it was just, I'm like, hey, I just want to make sure you guys are being, and they didn't go big on like, well, what's the square footage outside of the pavilion? It was to have that conversation. And I don't see that being a big issue at Leif Hansen Park.
Not at
all.
Hanson. But
But-
I also think that it's gonna really, I mean,
South Forest, it could be.
and it's going to be,
Yeah.
I
No,
think,
yeah.
it's gonna be really dependent on who's involved in the conversation too. I mean, most people are respectful of other people. It's the people that aren't respectful of other people that a rule like this is needed, and those are probably the same type of people that are gonna give you pushback when you say you're being loud, you're being excessive. But, I mean, there's lots of things here that really aren't enforceable. So, I mean, if it's there, at least you can say, hey, when you use our parks, you agreed to this.
To do that, and then I think if that became an issue, I think that would, not that the Parks Commission wouldn't be asked to advise on it, but I do think that might become up, if it did become an issue, it would go to P and Z or potentially council on some of that big stuff with like planning and zoning, and
I
like
just
what
know
areas hit what. I don't know what other
I've
cities
heard
do.
noise violations, noise complaints come up for years. It's always been a thing. So when we have some in there, I think it's gonna be hard to enforce. It's gonna be up for interpretation. Everybody thinks for a different level of noise is too much. So, but I mean, I guess if it's there for interpretation, I just wanna make sure we know it's not really enforceable, because we don't have a set, what is this?
No, any more than we have somebody that's gonna follow you around and make sure that you clean up after your dog. I mean, that's on here too. So,
They're guidelines. This is what we're going to be giving to people when they purchase these plaques. We're going to be like the primary visitors of this. So what we're putting in this policy is stuff that we want people to know who are going to be future visitors to this park. that's really, and I mean, the park policy is, kind of set out, yeah, outside that, so they're enforced by Parks and Rec, but, this policy isn't really like an enforcement document, yeah.
I think
guess-
it'd be the starting point of a
Starting point,
conversation
yeah.
if we had any big issues. But then again,
The
we
signage
would
there.
reference our rule sign that
Yeah.
is clearly posted on the gazebo.
All right, last one, camping is not permitted. And again, that's a direct one from the sign as well, so.
Is there a definition in code of what camping is?
I was thinking the same thing.
There's actually, it is referenced in code that there is no camping within the city limit unless it is designated as a camping area, such as on the beach, unless it is temporary approved. I'm paraphrasing, temporary approved by the city manager. Like there's a camping permit that someone can fill out, and like say there's a soccer tournament, they can fill out a temporary camping permit to be anywhere on like public city land or in a park. And then I would inspect it and approve it. They have to have a site plan, a map, and then it goes to the city manager.
And I think your question is because you know the same thing as I do. There's been overnight visitors in that pavilion regularly.
No, and I think every summer at parks, we get that call. In vehicles, in different parks and everything, and we usually take that information and go right to dispatch with it. Because it does violate our,
It is something, I need to find out what, so you need to reach out to Kevin, the planning director, because he's not under the interpretation that there is camping allowed.
I'll talk to Kevin.
Yeah, I talked to Kevin
Because
because
there's a,
talking about it because that should pertain to private lots too. There's an order, a code about that, I would imagine, because he was like, there isn't, long-term camping is the only one that's not allowed. Permanent, long-term camping, where they actually build skirting and make a camper and build living, that's not allowed, but he's under the impression that there's nothing saying they can't camp on private lands.
oh, and I don't know about private lands on that.
That's just
I don't know
city
I don't know how the code actually reads out as that, because I only deal with parks and city land on that. I don't know how it would work if someone wanted to camp in the.
But there is a city code that says for parks and public lands that talks about camping.
Yeah, it does, and like the city manager has authority to temporarily approve for those things, like at the soccer field, we have no camping sign, but if people wanted for a tournament, if they wanted to put tents in the
A
front. that's
softball
all
tournament
it'd
that
be.
happens.
Yeah, and that gets approved through there, there's a process. for
Okay.
that.
That makes sense.
Well, that's the end of the changes in the memo. You guys want to have any further questions about the new policy?
Again, I think the language got changed up a little bit, and it was good, but I thought it was good. Megan took all the language and some of the conversation that we had at our last meeting and kind of brought it forth to the city lawyer and the city clerk, and they worked through it, and we kind of read through it, and it seemed like it met some of the stuff we were looking for.
Any further thoughts, or, because if there's any amendments that need to be made, it would be done at the following regular meeting that we're about to go into, so
That's when this will get adopted.
No,
recommended.
recommended, yeah.
I think there's just a grammatical issue on number 6.
So you are looking at the original policy.
Okay,
so
all
that's the old one.
Good, then it's
Yeah,
not
there
a
is a lot.
mistake. Well, I think I kept going back and forth between the old and the new, and that was the problem. And they both said draft. No.
Are there these, are we gonna be going through each part? Is that the goal, kind of go through each, are there different rules and?
No, there's not a policy per park, that Leaf Hansen has its own policy as a
Okay.
as a
It's
memorial
just a
park.
unique,
Yeah, like the cemetery has it, so there's plaques, there's memorial benches.
okay, that's why this is a separate.
Yep, we just brought it up because we're gonna be reopening the park for Memorial Park sales, and we wanna have a fresh, accurate policy to be able to distribute when we sell those plaques.
Okay, that's why I was like, one for every single park, or is it gonna get along?
So we're going up there, Stan?
For the regular meeting, we'll be going up there, so if you guys have any questions or suggestions, now's the time. If not, we're gonna adjourn and go to the regular meeting. All right.
Adjourn.
Meeting work session adjourned.
I'm.
I'd like to call the May 1st, 2025 Parks and Rec Commission regular meeting to order. If we can all stand for the pledge. If we can have roll call.
Wisniewski,
Here.
Graham, Stevens, Bernard,
Present.
Fisher,
Present.
Pepper,
Present.
Grimmy.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll move to approve the agenda as amended, or presented, sorry.
Any revisions to the agenda?
Did we get a second?
Oh, did we get a second? Nobody
I'll
second?
second.
Any revisions? Are there any objections approving the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Moving on to scheduled public comment, and we don't have any. Moving on to unscheduled public comment. Is anybody remotely on there? Seeing none. Approval of minutes. We have a motion to approve the April 3rd, 2025 minutes.
I motion we approve April 3rd, 2025 minutes.
I'll second.
Any revisions? Any objections? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Going on to unfinished business. We do not have any. So we'll move on to new business, discussing the recommendation approval of the City of Kenai Leaf Hands Memorial Park Policy number PRK-70.002. May I have a motion to recommend approval of the City of Kenai Leaf Hansen Memorial Park Policy Number PRK-70.002.
I'll motion to approve the City of Kenai Leaf Hansen Memorial Park Policy Number PRK-70.002.
I'll second.
So we call for a staff report?
Yep. So at the last meeting, we had a work session and discussed some changes. Those changes went forward to, back to the city clerk, the city attorney, and were reviewed by the parks director, the clerk's office, and the attorney's office. We found some other stuff that was discussed with the commission as we were rewriting the plan, as discussed in the work session, but open to any comments on the floor from the commission.
Anybody have any discussion, comments? I think we probably talked about it there in the meeting before, so probably would have discussed them then. If we can call for a vote on the main motion.
Comment?
So I make a motion or a request for unanimous consent.
I second it.
Any objections? Seeing none, the motion is passed. Moving on to amending the Kenai, get a motion to recommend amending the Kenai Municipal Cemetery Regulations and Fee Schedule to revise marker and headstone regulations and other housekeeping amendments.
I'll make a motion to amending the Kenai Municipal Cemetery Regulations and Fee Schedule to revise marker and headstone regulations and other housekeeping amendments.
I'll second.
Staff report?
I'm gonna defer the staff report to Deputy Clerk Thibodeau.
All right, so this is just a pretty small revision to the cemetery regulations. Back in 2022, this commission went through and did an update, like a full revision of the cemetery regulations, kind of like how we just did for Leif Hansen. So this is just making a few small changes to it. These changes have come about because in the last couple of years, the clerk's office has been auditing the cemetery records, and that has also included going to the cemetery, getting pictures of the headstones to get that information into our database. And there's just been a few inconsistencies between the current regulations as approved and some of the current practices. So this is really going to bring a lot of the current practices, headstones in the cemetery, into compliance. So for example, first one, clarification on marker limits per lot. So the previous policy said no more than one marker headstone per plot shall be allowed. But in most of the plots, in our standard plots, we allow up to 3 burials. So it wasn't really practical to say that there's only one allowed if there's more than one burial. So We have changed that language to now say each internment must have at least one, but each standard or infant plot may have up to 3 markers. And each cremains plot, which is a smaller plot that does only allow 1 burial, that will have a maximum of 1. And then as far as upright headstones, of the 3 that are allowed, only 1 can be upright. So we can't have a plot with 2 or 3 upright headstones, but we can have 1 upright headstone and up to 2 flat ones in addition to that. So this is something that has been happening. If you go over to the cemetery, you'll see there's many plots that have multiple markers per plot for multiple burials, and it's a common practice. So this really just brings the regulations into that practice. And then secondly, headstones spanning multiple lots. So the current language states that all markers must be contained within the footprint of the plot. But another thing that we very commonly see over there is a couple or more than 2 plots that are in a family that are next to each other, and there will be a single headstone spanning both of them with both of their names on it. It's a really common practice. So for our regulations to say that it had to be contained within 1 was just not practical. So that's why we're kind of just changing a little bit of the language to make sure that that's not restricting anyone's headstone. So, and then third one, this is a new regulation. As we were going over there to the cemetery, we did notice that there are some headstones that instead of being inscribed are actually painted, which would technically fit within our old cemetery regulations because they were concrete, but after a couple years it washes away. It's not going to work for the actual longevity of it. So a new provision would require that headstone inscriptions must be either deeply engraved or raised in high enough relief for them to be legible for years to come. So, and then the last one was just a small one. We just wanted to, it doesn't change any of the meaning of the regulations. We're just kind of making consistent terminology. We were using terms such as burial site or grave, and we just decided throughout the policy would refer to them as internment locations or internment plots. So, and then a final version of this is going to go to the city council for their approval, as is required by code. So we are just hoping to get your yay or nay on this.
All that sounds good to me from what I've dealt with. Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
I have a question. I hope it's appropriate now. Is the ones that aren't engraved or raised, are those going to have that done or is there a way to do that, or do you just not?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it is part of the long-term plan of our office that as we're going through this audit, collecting the photographs of the headstones, matching them with their records, we're finding out which plots are unmarked and then which ones are marked in a way that are not compliant. So it's not going to be something that happens immediately, but it is a long-term plan of our office to be able to reach out to those families and make sure, and if we're not able to get in touch with the families, make some other provisions to be able to mark those headstones in a way that will last permanently.
Thank you.
And call for a vote on the main motion.
I'd like to make a request for unanimous consent.
I'll second.
Any objection? Seeing none, the motion passed. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan.
Moving on, discussion recommendation, have a motion to recommend amending the Kenai Recreation Center open hours.
I'll make a motion amending the Kenai Recreation Center open hours.
I second.
Call for a staff report.
All right, yeah, I'll give a brief overview of the memo that's attached in your packets. But before I go into that, I'll go over to our normal operations of the rec center. Currently, at the end of September, we switch over to winter hours from October to the end of April, and then summer hours are May to the end of September. Our winter hours are Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., Saturday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., and then Sunday, 1 to 5. And then on May 1st, today, we switch over to 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., that is Monday through Saturday, and then we are closed on Sundays. Every year at this switch, at both times of it, we usually get a couple comments on people wanting more consistent hours throughout the summer and everything. And then this year, as it was up and coming, a member of the public asked if he could bring forward a petition to me, and I told him yes, and he came back within 24 hours with 66 signatures on it. That petition is attached to the memo as well. And that, and they were requesting we keep winter hours year-long. After discussing it with the individual who brought in the petition, the one thing we have with that is our operations grow in the summer, and it pulls myself and the assistant director away from the rec center, where in the winter we can provide more support. I'll give you an example. In the last month, there has been multiple shifts where, staff gets sick, staff takes time off, where the assistant director has covered a shift, I have covered a shift, or the maintenance staff, who usually is the last line of defense, have covered shifts, but that does pull away from normal operations, and in the summer, that would really affect how we operate. So we spoke with the individual and asked if the intent was was more consistent hours and year-round, so there wouldn't be an unexpected change. Looking at our attendance records, there's still support for things slowing down in the summer, but in a shorter season that is currently presented. So what we were proposing is something we'd meet, or without affecting regular attendance at the recreation, would be not keeping winter hours, but looking at augmenting our hours year-round, being Monday through Saturday, 6:30 to 9:30. We get a spike of traffic at 6 in the morning, and usually we get a spike of traffic around 7:30 at night, and then things simmer down a little bit. So we were kind of looking at what would still serve the public. So if we could take away an hour of operation, that would help us out throughout the summer months. That being said, we still get stretched pretty far out in the summer, definitely during the PU fishery. So we did still had a summer change, which was Sunday. We were requesting for just 3 months of the summer that we could be closed during those Sunday operations, just to take some of that pressure off when we're running the PU fishery and we have all of our seasonals in and we're operating in all of our parks at full capacity. We spoke with the individual, and they said they think that the proposed hours we gave to them met the intent they wanted with the petition. So they were very happy with that. So that's why we wanted to come to this body and see if you guys had a recommendation on, you guys could recommend that we stay the same, but I guess we're a part, if you would recommend that we make this change or not.
Did you say you have a spike at 6 a.m.?
Yep.
So I guess my question would be why the proposed hours would shift to not opening until 6:30 then, if you have the two spikes you identified, one would be at 6 a.m. and you would be eliminating that time by opening at 6:30.
So what our goal with that was to not open at 8, where we would probably lose our people, because the common thing the person brought forward was, people have to be to work at 8, or some people just like working out early. And they're like, if you moved it to 7, you'd probably lose half of us. But if you move it to 8, you'll lose all of us. And the 6:30 seemed like people were like, we could probably accommodate a 6:30 time. And then, because if we did 6, again, keeping those winter hours year-round would affect our summer operation where it wouldn't, I don't think it would be good to do, and I wouldn't recommend that. But I think a 6:30 is kind of a middle ground that looks forward to helping us out. And then the other thing I think I noted in here, if you look at available hours year-round, we're actually expanding open hours year-round by just over 100. Like we are offering more hours to the public with this plan, and I think we can support that. So, and the thought of that too is 6 a.m. moving at half an hour, we're still going to get a spike at 6:30. We get a spike at opening. In the summer, we get a smaller spike at 8, but we'd still accommodate some of those people that like coming in at that 6 a.m. hour, but being able to meet our operational needs. And the other thing with that is people want that consistency. While that consistency at 6 a.m. would be hard to hold, 6:30 does help us out a little bit there, and we can maintain that year-round. So if someone signed up for a gym membership, they aren't going to be like, well, in the summer, I'm going to go to Anytime Fitness now. They can see, okay, you guys are going to be open 6:30. And then what this also, the other nice thing about this is one of the feedback we get throughout the winter is our 1 to 5 opening on Sundays is weak. Like if, 2 birthday parties come in and then we don't have any open gym, someone wants to come in with their family, or if they just want to come in and shoot hoops, it's rented out and they can't do that. So opening this up 2 more hours is a pretty significant window to provide some more open gym times on that Sunday throughout the winter.
Tyler, what would it do to your operation if, say, opened at 6 and closed at 9 instead of 9:30? What would that do?
I think that would affect the closers, the people who come at night. Like I said, we have a spike at 7:30, and at 9 there's still people there, maybe like working out, shooting hoops. But at 9:30, the building's almost empty. So that's why we kind of took that attendance on, while we'd be moving that opening time a little bit. And I took that into consideration. Again, I spoke with the person who brought in the petition. Invited them to come to the meeting too, and they were like, no, you got it. And they seemed very supportive with that 6:30 meeting the intent of what they were looking for. And I think it was just a little more consistency, but still staying open at that earlier hour. And they thought 6:30 met the most of those needs that they talked with the people about the petition.
But it's potentially a different group of people at 6:30 in the morning, which sounds like the petitioner is part of, versus the 9:30, 10 o'clock at night group.
Yes, that would be a different group, yeah.
And did you get any feedback from the later folks about 9:30 versus 10?
Nope, we just reviewed our attendance logs and looked at our traffic logs to come up with something that would support, again, the petition, and I think support our operational demand if we did move to a different hour base.
One more question, Tyler. Had you considered closing for an hour in the middle of the day for like a lunch break or something?
No, because we have a pretty good lunch crowd that comes in. So I think standard operating procedure in the gym would be to stay open in that lunchtime. That's when we get another good traffic flow in there.
It might be hard to enforce clearing the building for an hour or two. I can see that being a problem, like somebody's mom's not there to pick them up or something and you're stuck.
Yeah, and that was one thing we considered because we were looking at some of our operational need, and we looked at what would be like a 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we were, after discussing it with this person, some of the openers, they were kind of like, the hour is still just a little bit. We're like, okay, well, what if we took off half an hour at the end? Because our traffic data supported that. There's a big spike at 7:30, and then we kind of see the building basically be empty. And that's mostly staff report and what we see when, myself and Jenna have closed the building at 9:30. It's essentially empty. So I could see this being a little bit of it's a pretty small tweak. But and the other thing I really like with this plan is that at the end of the day, we are offering more hours throughout the end of the year too. And I think it makes it more manageable by the staffing we have.
I like the consistent hours. I can't do anything where I have to go. Is this a different time?
Well, and I will say I actually struggled with that quite a bit with just having that Sunday and having our rec staff have a couple more overlap shifts helps me and Jenna out so much in the summer. you know, when we have, again, all of our parks open that are, half of them are covered in snow and not used in the winter. So to have that little bit of breathing room helps us a lot in the summer. And that's where I was like, okay, what can we do to make that Sunday a little bit longer? And it's shrinking that shift to just, which I think people are pretty used to in Alaska, not to May to September, but to June to August. Kind of hitting that summer window when everyone's kind of running around outside and everything, so.
I do have concerns about the Sunday closed in the summer. I know you are closed now, but I guess having access to a safe place for, especially kids, is what I'm thinking about mostly during the summer months when their time's not as structured, or the weather's yucky, so they can't play, you can't use the hoops at, you know, the park at the end of Forest or Spruce or whatever, end of Forest. Sundays, you know, or late in the day Sundays or whatever, would be a good option for them. And it makes me think of the dump that's closed on Sundays in the winter, and that drives me nuts. And I never remember that they're closed until halfway through the winter being over. So I know that you've got more on your plate during the summer months, but you know, 7 days a week would be great. Especially because kids aren't in school in the summer and they can be out doing things on a Sunday evening that maybe they aren't able to be doing during the winter months.
I think it'd be worth trying and then do it like for a year, and if we need to change it, like come next year, if it's not working out, you can always do that, and that's what we're here for, to do that. But and again, yeah, Sunday would be nice, but just around the corner, there's other places like the movie theater, fun center, stuff for them to go to if they need to. Not that it's basketball and stuff, but looks like they haven't done Sunday in forever in the summer, so they might not be used to going over there anyway. But
And that's, I mean, I know it's not what you're asking for, but that is also, I think, one of the reasons why I looked at even making Sunday available in May and September, when those months are warming up, the weather is crummier. But that, again, I think I struggled with that, because at first I was like, oh, if we had Sundays open, it would be great. But then again, that operational demand is really hard to fill that gap. But that's where I was happy with being able to offer more hours to the public and have those Sundays available in May and September as well. But
Like one more comment, one other thing about, that we're looking at with the Sundays in the summer. The reason we wanted to expand in the winter is we were looking at Sundays in the winter, and it was a concentrated amount of people trying to get into the gym to enjoy the space when it's cold outside. So we were thinking, okay, we need to expand our hours and serve the community. In the summer, we find that our traffic can be low in the gym on Saturday. So adding Sunday would just be another low traffic day. We just haven't even seen it doesn't carry over the type of traffic we get in the winter for our gym. It doesn't carry over into the summer. People go do other things. And we've seen that just based off our Saturday attendance, so.
so we want a motion, is that what you're?
Yeah, so what this motion would do would be a recommendation, and there might be a couple parts to this, because I think there's actually a discussion item going forward to council, what things, so this body advises the council and it advises the Parks and Recreation Department, like administration, and you can do recommendations to both. And right now, this recommendation is kicking directly to administration. We are working on a discussion item for disseminating what would go forward to council and what would go to administration on that right now. I think that's gonna be at the next meeting. So this recommendation right now is kicking to administration, I believe, but there are recommendations that would advise council and ones that would advise administration. Administration's going to council to seek clarity on that. But right now, this would kick to a recommendation, and the city manager has authority over facility hours. So it would be something we would discuss with him. But I went through this, and he wanted to get feedback from the commission and everything, so we'd talk about that. We don't have a set date where this would kick off in motion, but it was one of those things we wanted to bring forward. And I think the private citizen going out and getting, a signature showed a big surplus. Every year we get a couple phone calls, but this was a pretty significant impact. And he came in pretty not optimistic he's like, oh, I'll just leave this with you. You can throw it in the trash if you want. And I was like, no. I'm like, come back. I'm like, this is something I'd probably go speak with the city manager about and bring forward to the commission. And I invited him to come speak. He was like, no, he seems like you can present the material what we wanted pretty well to the commission. So that's what this recommendation would do. Right now, it would be recommending to administration that this seems good and you guys can keep on exploring this option.
I make a motion to move it to administration for them to decide what is best, or move to the 6:30 to 9:30 PM, Monday through Saturday, year-round hours for the rec center,
Well, and we wouldn't be open on Sundays.
and not open on Sunday.
Sorry, I think what you were saying, but I just want to make sure I clarify, because you could change it if you want. You could say I move to approve the proposed schedule.
I move to propose the proposed schedule.
I second.
Do you want to take it to a vote, or?
I have a clarifying question on the motion then. Can we ask that, if we approve it today, to recommend it to, what did you say, city manager? But ask that in a year, that you adopt this for a full cycle, and in a year, come back and give us some information about what your attendance looked like with these changed hours. And if it is something that should be sustained as recommended, or if further changes would be better for the community.
I think we can have that in our notes attached to the motion, and I can bring that forward as it goes there too. That if we're proposing this and then assessing when if it does, goes forward and everything, that we reassess after a year and see. I think another big thing that we would get is if we get a bunch of negative comments when normally we switch to 6 a.m. to 10 in the winter, then that would give us a full year to kind of reassess and invite people at that meeting. Hey, we have a public meeting at the Parks and Rec Commission that you're more than welcome to come to and voice your opinion about as well.
So I think we were seconded, and we need to make a vote, is it?
Yeah, we could go into a roll call. So you could ask for a roll call.
If I get a roll call?
Wisniewski,
Yes.
Graham, Bernard,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Pepper,
Yes.
Grimmy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Moving on to reports, Director Best.
This Saturday, 10 a.m. If you want to do the community cleanup, 10 a.m. to 12:30, we'll be outside at the chamber as our home base there. We'll be giving out bags and trash grabbers, and we'll be hosting a community cleanup day. Myself, I will be there for a little bit, but I'll also be presenting to council in this chambers our annual budget. There'll be our regular budget meeting, but Assistant Director Brown will be there, and then some of our park staff will be there, and we usually get some volunteers there, and they go around, and we usually copy a couple different spots where people can go and pick up garbage, and then we'll have a Parks and Rec vehicle there that we can put the bags in, bright yellow bags. You may have seen them around. And then occasionally too, I've had it where people have been like, hey, I really want to drive to this one place in front of like KCH. This happened one year. We had an established route, and they're like, can we drive in front of KCHS and pick up garbage? And we'll bring our bags back. And we go, yes, but you can actually leave your bags there, and you told us, and then we'll drive on by and grab it. While this is an event, I also would like to stress, if anyone, this is something we do all year, and we get numerous calls, and we work with the chamber on it. They keep bags there too. We get bags donated to us, the bright yellow bags, and if you call us and say, hey, I want to pick up garbage today, which happens a lot. There's a lot of great community members who are like, I just want to pick up trash along Main Street. Where can I get trash bags? We'll provide them with trash bags. A few churches do this every year. The Rotary does this every year. They'll contact us and ask for trash bags, and they'll go along the highway and pick up trash bags. And if they let us know, that helps, because we can just go, yep, leave the bags piled up here, and we will come by and pick them up. That is something Kenai Parks has done for a number of years, but to kind of complement our cleanup day. So if you guys ever hear of anyone who's like, oh, I'd love to go pick up some trash, be like, you can get a free trash bag. Which, I don't know if you guys have seen, the big trash bags are really close to about 50 cents a piece. So there's a nonprofit in Anchorage who operates, who actually gives bags to the chamber, and we coordinate with them to give those out to members of the public. So it's a really great program. We really like doing it. It's really cool to see throughout the summer how many people do it and then show up on this day. I will give a special shout out to I don't know if it's an official club, but I'm going to say Dan Ballmer, the president of the rugby club. He comes usually every year, and last year it was pouring rain, and he picked up trash. I was driving home after the event, and he was still picking up trash on the side of the road with his own trash bag. So that rugby club does a cleanup day every year in-house too at the Millennium Square Fields, and they really do a lot for the community. And then next, after Labor Day, we're going to be opening up our Slash site. It'll be open Thursday through Sunday, and after Memorial Day. I don't know. After Memorial Day, on that Thursday through Sunday, we'll operate a Slash site from 10 a.m. to 6. That Slash site is operated just north of our soccer field. So you drive past our soccer fields, and it's the first right. We have some signs that we put up that will say operating hours, and that's where people can come and dump Slash. I've always known the term Slash. Not everyone does. It is limbs and treetops under 2 inches is our goal. Not stumps and not rounds. That's just due to when we incinerate it, it can burn for a long time afterwards. But we say Slash only, and then we track that, and we're operating this via a grant. So we track all of our hours, all of our equipment hours. Our streets department will go out there and help grade up the road here shortly, and it's just a resource for the community. It's not for commercial dumping, it's just for residential. So if people are clearing beetle kill trees, they can go dump the Slash there. And then on May 31st, the first Saturday after Memorial Day, we will be having our annual kite festival where the AK kiters will come on up and they will have really big kites. I think it's still there, but if you go on Google Earth and look at Millennium Square, you will see a giant spaceman laid out on the field. It's actually real. I don't know how the stars really aligned when Google Earth took a picture, but it's kind of neat. If you zoom in on the Millennium Square next to the Senior Center on Google Earth, you will see kids playing around on a kite, a big parachute we bring out on one of the fields, but there's probably like a 25-foot kite that was an astronaut, and you can clearly see it flying above the field, and that's pretty cool, I think. I'd highly recommend everyone doing it. I probably have a bunch of screenshots on my phone, but it's one of those neat things where, we use Google Maps to look at different things, and it's like, what? And you just kind of see a little man, and you're like, what is that? And you zoom in, and there's a giant astronaut in the field. And it's also cool, you can just tell that there's bodies running around, and you can see the kites. And then additionally, on May 31st, we'll be having 2 events that day. At different times, different crowds and everything too, but the Kite Festival will be 12 to 3 p.m. And then starting at 10 a.m., we'll be doing our planting day. Right now, our greenhouse is full of beautiful plugs that are growing nice, big, and strong. We coordinate with different groups throughout that week to actually, like, there's a church group on Thursday that wants to come and help plant some of our flowers at our circle planters in our annual beds. And then on that day at 10 a.m., we'll kick off right in front of City Hall here and have our plants setting at different beds, and our staff will meet with them and help people plant flowers in beds throughout the town. That's a really fun day. It's 10 a.m. to noon. The fire department will be cooking some food, some hot dogs and hamburgers, and we'll have that for the volunteers afterwards. So if you want a really fun Saturday, you can come plant flowers, eat some food, and then go fly a kite. So we just have a jam-packed full May 31st this year, which is always just really fun. And I am open to any, actually, before I go open to questions, did I miss anything?
Okay, so the yellow cleanup bags are available at the Chamber Visitor Center and the Kenai Rec Center during open hours. So you can actually just stop by. You don't have to call. If you just are on a whim and you're like, I'm going to grab a few bags, you can just pull up and snag a few and then continue on with your cleanup efforts. Director Best, when he was speaking about supplies, if you want to coordinate something with a group, we actually have gloves and trash grabbers. So if you have a group that you want to get together for a community cleanup, that we will help support that, and then we will circle back and pick up whatever is left behind from public Kenai spaces. And then as far as the planting days, they'll start the barbecue at 11:30 a.m. and that'll go until 12:30 p.m. So that time wasn't listed on the flyer, so just wanted to clear that up. And then I think that was it. That was it.
Any questions? Comment?
I actually did have a question, but Assistant Director Brown addressed it, and I appreciate the fact that you have grabbers, because some of us that don't mind picking up trash, the constant bending and standing up is a factor. So I appreciate the extra assistance.
For our pickup day, which will be this Saturday, we will have a ton of grabbers. We will have little grabbers. So we've had little people, little guys, come and help us before, and they're like these little toddler grabbers. So if you want to get your kiddo out with you, picking up trash, we'll have those, and they can take them home. We'll also have donuts and coffee. So, but it's more of just like a hub, a tent in the visitor center parking lot, where we'll have just all the supplies and meet up materials, and then people can just distribute, pick up trash, and then let us know where to come grab it. We'll go pick it up following the event.
Any other comments? Appreciate the report. Leading into my report, I do not have one, so we will move on to Councilmember Douthit.
Alrighty, last meeting, we had our presentation about our annual audit, financial audit for the city. It came back clean, which is always a good thing. Boys and Girls Club did a presentation about their new facility and their grand opening coming up first week of May 6th?
I thought it was May 17th.
17th, somewhere in there. I get a lot of dates in my head. Middle of May, they're having a grand opening for their new facility over there. Should be an interesting tour of their new buildings and show their plans and what else they have going on over there. Also had a presentation by the CART system, which is the Central Area Rural Transit System. It's been around for many years. Their board of directors came forward and talked about the last year's grant that the city donated $5,000 to their cause to help, and how they were able to basically double that with matched funds for being able to get new communications and dispatch systems. And then they asked for a continuation of that grant and asked for more this year. So we'll be addressing that at our finance meeting on Saturday, see what we can come up with to help them out. It seems like they're doing a lot with it. They've kind of been revamped with a whole new executive director, new board of directors, and they're moving forward in a positive direction. So that's good to see. They provide a large amount of people to inexpensive transportation to the city, which is a common. I think wanted to say I might misspeak, but somewhere around 40% of their ridership is coming to the city of Kenai. So I thought that was pretty important for the city to keep in mind with that. So it means a lot of people are using carts to be able to get to the city. Hopefully for employment, but who knows. Then we accepted a donation from the animal shelter. There was a bunch of different donations that kind of from many different people that we accepted all those for equipment and supplies for use at the animal shelter. That was great to see those donations coming in. We did authorize the conditionally donation of that 3 approximate 1.5 acre parcels to subdivide portion of approximately a 69.5 acre parcel. So this is the Kenai Meadows. It's from the Kenai Peninsula Housing Initiative. This was brought forth. They're trying to build more low-income housing. If you've ever been on Redoubt, about halfway down on the right, there's 2 new buildings. This is another, and you'll see now that they've just got the lots cleared. And that's where this was technically for phase 2 of that project. So phase 1 is what they're working on now with the new lots being cleared. This is an additional area behind that. They're trying to do a phase 2 of that area, which would allow for more. There's like 6 plexes, maybe some 8 plexes, and some other senior housing back in there. I think it'll be a good thing for the community if it goes through. And this was just a conditional offer, so they can use that land for a grant application. So if they don't get the grant, they probably won't be constructing it, but this is so that they can use the land as leverage towards their grant application. So we donated it. That's why it's considered a conditional donation. We were able to redirect some water and sewer capital project funds to help update some of the city's lift stations and do some improvements on some of the lift stations. These are all the areas where the sewer goes through to get pumped to the next level to keep things flowing. This is a majority of these funds are going to be used for basically a remote alarm system, because right now they don't have one. Basically, if there's a red light flashing on top of them, they have to drive there to find out that it's wrong. This is to modernize their electrical panel boxes and start getting them to where they can have a main panel at one location that alerts them that, hey, at this location, there's a problem. It's a pretty outdated system, so this is going to be a long process, but this is the kind of a phase 1 of that. And then they did implement a new, it passed, it's a new fee for a truck fill station. What they're gonna do is at the airport down the road here, at one of the fire hydrants, they're gonna install a filling station for like large construction projects. So that they come to a central hub to fill their water trucks for if they're building roads or pads. Instead of having to tap into just before they used to be able to tap into the nearest fire hydrant. Public Works wants to get away from that and to go to a central hub because some areas are more conducive to being not interrupting residential water supplies and having dirty water and stuff if there's a lot of flushing going on. We'll see how it works. I've heard some feedback that certain contractors are a little concerned about it, adding extra fees to their construction needs because they have extra trucking fees. So we'll see how that pans out, but that fee was added and it will be a new addition as an option this year. So we awarded a new contract for the use of some cranes and office area and at the city dock. That's just the standard crane systems, but this is implementing this for use for the new construction of the bluff stabilization project. This company was going to be using some of those cranes in some of that area for their operations for supplies. So that was this authorization. This wasn't for the commercial fishing side of operations, but it's all the same dock area there at the city dock, just to the left of the boat ramp. And then we authorize the city manager to enter into the agreement with the city of Soldotna to continue providing animal shelter services for the city of Soldotna in the Kenai Animal Shelter. We don't provide enforcement in the city of Soldotna. They still have their own animal control, but they pay us basically to use our animal shelter as housing for their impounded pets. It's been going on for several years, seems to be working. So I'm assuming it'll continue to work. Some people like it, some people don't, but we're continuing with that. Those are the kind of the major ordinances that were passed on resolutions, so. And then we have our all-day finance meeting to approve the budget on this Saturday. That'll always be a lot of fun. And then that'll also be where the council will be deciding what grants they offer and for their in-house non-departmental grants for like carts and those kind of agencies that we offer to, so. That's a long report for what didn't seem like a very long agenda. Yeah.
Surprisingly long meeting too.
A surprisingly long meeting, yes.
Any questions for Alex? Seeing none, we'll move on to additional public comment, and I don't see any of that. Next meeting is June 5th. Is anybody planning on being absent or attending remotely? We'll never know. Anybody on the commission have any other comments that they want to say before we adjourn?
The June 5th meeting, will there be a 5:30 early meeting before that?
There's not currently a plan to have a work session
Okay.
at the 5:30 meeting.
I do have a question. Has any date been set for visiting the various parks and trails?
No, it has not. No, it has not.
I'm sure Tyler will let us know when that happens, though, if it happens.
Yeah, I could see that being either a discussion item or, honest, if there is, I don't know if we'll have any pressing agenda items at the June 5th meeting, so that could also be an opportunity to maybe try to turn that into a work session where we'll go around and tour some stuff.
I guess this might be for Tyler. I have a question. Did we have the first working group this week for the master plan? Was that this week?
Yeah, I didn't put it in it wasn't in my packet, so I didn't want to, but you asked about it.
Sorry.
So this last Tuesday, we had a master plan working group with the public. I think there's a flyer out front. Jenna?
There is not yet.
Okay.
But we'll be posting one.
Yeah, so with that group, what happened was we were at the chamber and they hung up a bunch of different big posters that had a name of the majority of our parks. And the idea was to say your likes, your dislikes, what you want to see. Do you want to see them grow? Do you want to see them shrink? And then there was a place for programs. What do you like? Programs, events. What do you like we do? Do you want to see more? Do you want to see less? Do you want to, what do you want to see from the city and the Kenai? It goes over, yeah, there was a general one at the end. It's like parks, like a general parks one. Do you want to see new parks? Do you want to see less parks? New facilities? Do you want to see new facilities? Do you want to see less facilities? Programs/events. Do you want to see the city providing more programs and events, or do you want to see them providing less? And then what do you like and what do you dislike them? There will be a link that basically goes over all of this electronically too, that is live now, but we discussed earlier, right before the work session a little bit. I mean, not before the work session. But before, there's a QR code, and then we're also getting a clickable link where people will share it on our social media and email it out, where people can go through, and that'll be open till May 20th, where you can give feedback on that. And what this is, it is step one in our master plan. I've been using this analogy a lot. I think Councilmember Dother used it. If we were going to call it a funnel, this is step one in developing this. And then in the beginning of the summer, they're going to take this feedback and then create a community survey off what people say what they want to see from the parks. And then basically be like, hey, logistically, this is how these things can happen. Would you guys be in support of this? Like funding options and things like that. And then, okay, you meet these standards, so this is where, if there's some gaps to fill, they'll use national standards to fill those gaps. And then from that survey, they will develop a draft master plan that will go through this body and then go through council as well to get approved. And that will be a guiding document for us for the next 10 to 20 years.
How was the turnout for the first meeting? Was there a few people there at least, or?
Yeah, we had some people there, and we had a small group, and they stayed for a long time though. There was a lot of really good discussion over a lot of really insightful stuff. So that was good to hear. And again, we had multiple group people that emailed us and were like, hey, we can't make it. And we're like, we're gonna have an online option too, which is very similar to what they did, where they had waterfront meetings a few years ago about what it would look like to redevelop the waterfront in Kenai. Not parks, but actually it was the same group that won the RFP. And they provided basically all the same questions and stuff available to the community for about 3 weeks via an online participation survey.
I know we do, this body and most of the commissions get it might be something to talk to the city clerk about, get a text message alert that there's a meeting. I think it'd be really good for this body to get those maybe, and possibly council, when there is that next work session they're gonna have, possibly seeing if the clerk can send out an alert via text message to remind everybody, because I think it'd be good for this body to have, participate in that too, I would think.
Okay.
Just an idea.
I don't know if we can, I don't know. Yeah, that might be a
know.
good question for the clerk, if that.
I mean, they do it for all the regular meetings, you get the
Well, so it technically wasn't a public meeting, it was a private meeting held at the chamber through
okay.
this contractor. But, and let me know if you didn't get an email, because I did try to send a email poster to all of council and this body as well. So if you didn't get that email, let me know, and I can also email out that link, because that was something I did, because there was also an advisory notice posted that it is not a public meeting, but there may be more than 2 people of a body there to support that. So I don't know if we could support it through our alert system or not. But
don't know.
Question, yeah.
It's just kind of a big move for this body, and I think it's important to have, as many people there that can see what and how people comment and help move it forward, because the reason we're all here is to obviously care about Parks and Rec in the city, and so I think that having a word in that would be good. But yeah, are we gonna be advertising any of this on the radio, or is that something through the RFP they would have to pay for?
No, we put it on the radio. We put it on the radio. I think it jumped on there last week. We got it in there. And then we also advertise it via social medias. And you should have, actually everyone should have gotten an email in here. If you didn't, please let me know, because I sent a flyer with the meeting dates and everything in there. And that would be really good feedback to have from you guys, because that was something I wanted to notice this body and council on it too.
Yeah, I just ended up getting stuck in Anchorage that day, otherwise I would have been there, but I did get it.
But no, that was the intent behind that though, was to try to get everyone to make sure. And at the last meeting, Commissioner Bernard asked for an emailed flyer, and that was a good comment on that. So that was something I happily did, and it was nice to see commission members there. And like I said, we had a number of emails of people who couldn't make it. And that's where we asked the contractor to provide this online resource too. Because they may do a couple pop-ups at community events, but there won't be another workshop like this. But I do think the survey captures that really well, and we'll make sure we get that information to everybody.
Is it gonna be on the City of Kenai website as a link?
Yes, I am currently working on a master plan project page too, that will kind of break down what's a master plan, why, this is what has happened, here's a link to this as well too.
I did get the email, the QR code, this was the QR code that just takes you to the city meetings page. It doesn't give you, I mean, it says on the flyer, for more information, follow this code. But when you follow that code, it just takes you to the list of meetings, which maybe the intention there is that you dig through that list to find what you're talking about, but Well, I wasn't willing to dig through it when I just was looking for more
No, actually,
information for
that
just
QR
that
code
day.
was, the QR code was supposed to bring you to a projects page, and we tested that.
Nope,
but-
I just tried it again. It didn't, I mean, when I read the email, it's what it did, and then I just tried it again just now. It's doing the
Okay.
same thing.
Was that the same QR code that was in the email that was on the flyers?
No, that actually
That's
brings you to
because
the,
she's talking
yeah,
about a
that was
different
actually supposed to
QR
bring
code.
you to the project page on building, so yeah, we'll check that out and fix that, so. But no, so there, we will send out a,
I used that QR code and it worked. That was at the work group. I pulled it up there.
no, not at the work group. This is a flyer that I emailed to the body that would bring
Okay.
you to more information about the master plan.
It's exciting to see that moving forward. That's a big step for this body to have that. That's a huge, could be huge for the city and trying to find out where we're going to find funding to finish some of these projects, but it's great to know what the public wants, so.
Anybody else? Seeing no further business, we will move to adjournment. You want to hit that thing?
Now, you can do that.
Oh. It did. Thanks, guys.